Edward Snowden speaks out at Moscow airport. Uranium processing plant in Guangdong scrapped. Locally, fallout from government failure to push through landfill expansion plans.
Hello and a very good evening. Former US intelligence contractor Edward Snowden has asked Russia for temporary asylum while he tries to arrange travel to a Latin American country willing to give him political asylum. The request has stirred up a hornet's nest in Washington, which wants him arrested and returned to the US, where he's wanted for espionage for leaking National Security Agency surveillance secrets. Alan Buckner reports.
Edward Snowden made the request to Russia during a meeting with human rights activists in the transit lounge of a Moscow airport, where he's been holed up since leaving Hong Kong on June 23rd. Snowden also accepted the offers of asylum he's received from Venezuela, Bolivia, and Nicaragua.
I ask for your assistance in requesting guarantees of safe passage from the relevant nations in securing my travel to Latin America, as well as requesting asylum in Russia until such time as these states accede to law and my legal travel is permitted. I did not seek to enrich myself. I did not seek to sell U.S. secrets.
Also at the meeting with Snowden was a Russian parliament member who expects Moscow to grant the temporary asylum request, so long as Snowden doesn't reveal further secrets that could hurt the U.S.
The message is to protect his rights. Most of the Russian people would agree with that. Definitely my electorate does not regard Mr. Snowden as a criminal. He did nothing wrong to Russia.
The request prompted a call from U.S. President Barack Obama directly to Russian President Vladimir Putin. But there appears to be no breakthrough on Washington's demand that Russia expel Snowden.
I would simply say that providing a propaganda platform for Mr. Snowden runs counter to the Russian government's previous declarations of Russia's neutrality, and that they have no control over his presence in the airport.
Meanwhile, South American leaders meeting in Uruguay condemned the U.S. over the allegations of spying in the region and defended their right to offer Snowden asylum. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Plans to build a uranium processing plant in Jiangmen in Guangdong province have now been scrapped. The decision follows strong opposition from residents there. The 37 billion yuan project by China National Nuclear Corporation triggered a slew of protests. Demonstrators worried about safety risks took to the streets of Heshan and Jiangmen yesterday. Last night, the Heshan city government announced it would extend the 10-day consultation period to 20 days. And this morning, the announcement was out that the plans were dropped, with a statement on the government's website saying it had respected people's wishes. The Jiangmen city mayor made a televised address this afternoon, insisting her government is a responsible one that shares a goal with residents to protect their living environment. Officials refused to answer questions at an earlier press conference and didn't say whether it would find another location for the plant. Local residents showed mixed feelings about the announcement. This woman said it's great news for the future generations to grow up without the plant posing toxic threats. But this woman was suspicious, saying authorities may simply build the facility later. The plant was needed to undertake uranium conversion and enrichment as the country tries to become self-sufficient in the fuel cycle of nuclear power. China is building a dozen nuclear reactors in Guangdong on top of the 5 in operation now, in a bid to cut down on the more polluting coal power. But this has caused much unease in neighboring cities, including Hong Kong. Typhoon Soulik has made landfall on the mainland, slamming into Fujian province this afternoon. Across the strait in Taiwan, people are picking up the pieces after the powerful storm swept across the island last night. At least one person died and more than 20 were injured. Rescue workers in Nantou helped residents evacuate from their flooded homes. The typhoon also caused floods in Taiwan's central cities of Chiayi and Taichung, damaging properties and disrupting traffic.
Some local news now. The government plans to resubmit funding applications for the expansion of Hong Kong's 3 landfills to the Legislative Council after the summer break. Chief Secretary for Administration Carrie Lam says the administration will make use of the summer holiday to come up with proposals on how to compensate affected residents. Evelina Leung reports.
We will not give up plans to expand the city's 3 landfills. Fighting words from the Chief Secretary for Administration this morning after the Legislative Council delayed discussions on expanding the Two Moon and Takuleng sites yesterday. Carrie Lam said the government will resubmit funding applications for the expansion of all 3 landfills, the third one at Tseung Kwan O, after the LegCo summer break. The administration hopes to see the expansion of all 3 landfills happen simultaneously, Lam said. She added officials will make use of the summer holiday to consult affected residents and look into ways to minimize the impact on them. Speaking to TVB News today, Tam Yu-jung of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong supports discussing all 3 proposals together. Tam said his party has not yet reached a consensus on the expansion plans, but he believes society will support them if the government can minimize the impact on residents and offer them compensation. Others, meanwhile, say it's important the government learns from this episode.
First of all, it shows that in a democratic society, the process is also very important. It's not just the merits of the case, but the process. In this particular case about the landfill, people in Tuen Mun obviously feel that they have not been respected or consulted. So this is a lesson that the government should take back.
Evelina Leung, TVB News.
Debate over universal suffrage is heating up after the Alliance for True Democracy unveiled its proposals for the 2017 chief executive election. 2 executive council members waded in today, with one of them warning they may not receive Beijing's approval. Some in the pan-democratic camp are also unhappy, saying the proposals could be fine-tuned. João da Silva reports.
Within 6 months, that will be the right time for the government to kick off public consultation on political reform, according to Executive Council member Bernard Chan. He says the government should not delay it much longer, as the controversial issue is already generating heated discussions. Chan's comments came after the Alliance for True Democracy presented 3 proposals for universal suffrage for the 2017 chief executive election earlier this week. Among the suggestions, a public nomination process in which candidates must win the support of 2% of registered voters. But another Executive Council member, Fanny Law, said that may run against the expectations of the central government. She insisted Beijing has the final say on the matter. Certain members of the pan-democratic camp, meanwhile, say the proposals are not far-reaching enough.
Any system, which will, have a effect to screen out any nomination to us is totally unacceptable. This is the fundamental principle. The alliance proposal, part of them, is somewhat similar to what we propose, but the whole mechanism varied. This is why we need further discussion.
You can see in the 3 proposals, none of them conform totally with the original principles raised by the alliance. So that's why I can actually, on behalf of the alliance, to say that actually we are not endorsing any one of the proposals at this moment.
While the government comes under fire for using what some call delaying tactics on political reform, the pan-democrats are not wasting any time. Next Wednesday, the People Power leadership plans to meet again to decide whether or not the group will come up with its own universal suffrage proposal. João da Silva, TVB News.
And still to come on our main news tonight. 3rd Chinese schoolgirl dies in Asiana plane crash. Human error ruled out in deadly train derailment in France. And honouring Pakistani teenager Malala Yousafzai.
Welcome back. A 3rd Chinese girl has died in the Asiana Airlines jetliner crash in San Francisco last Saturday.
It is a pediatric patient who's been in our intensive care unit since the time of her crash. Her family has asked that we don't release any details about her identity, the nature of her injuries, or the treatment that she received.
And the San Francisco Police Department confirmed that one of the 2 Chinese teenagers killed on the day of the tragedy was run over by a fire truck rushing to the scene. More than 180 others were injured in the crash. Another nightmare for Boeing's 787 Dreamliner, this time a fire on board one of the jets at London's Heathrow Airport. Firefighters had to spray the Ethiopian Airlines 787 with foam after a small fire was reported at the back of the jet. No word on what caused it. Nobody was injured and there were no passengers on board the plane, which was parked at a remote stand at the time of the blaze. The external scorching from the fire was in a different part of the aircraft from the bays which contain the batteries that were the cause of a lot of the 787's problems earlier this year. Those battery fires forced aviation authorities to ground the Dreamliner for 3 months, while Boeing came up with ways to deal with the problem.
Elsewhere in Europe, at least 6 people were killed and dozens more injured after a train derailed at a station just south of Paris. France's transport minister has ruled out human error as a cause, and instead authorities say it was a fault with the tracks. Authorities have also warned that the death toll could rise.
Chunks of concrete slabs and twisted bits of metal across the track were a grim reminder of last night's tragedy. The 6 derailed carriages, scattered like matchsticks and smashed against the station platform, showed how serious it was. There were dozens of casualties when a regional service from Paris veered off the track at a station just south of the French capital. Passengers who survived the terrifying ordeal said victims were either crushed, electrocuted or cut by flying glass. Emergency workers rushed the most seriously injured by helicopter to local hospitals. France's national rail operator said the service was operating at the height of rush hour and was carrying around 370 people. It was operating at a busy period yesterday, with people leaving town to enjoy the Bastille Day national holiday. The chairman of France's national rail operator was one of the first to reach the scene to help with rescue efforts. France's transport minister later ruled out human error as a cause, although it has emerged that authorities are looking into an error in the switching system, as well as other possibilities. French President François Hollande also visited the crash site. He said a catastrophe had taken place and promised a full investigation. The station where the accident took place will be shut for 3 days, as investigators pick up the pieces and work out how the disaster unfolded. France's last major rail accident was in 1988, when a commuter train heading to Paris's Gare de Lyon crashed into a stationary train, leaving 56 people dead.
Next, controversy over the detention of a 5-year-old Palestinian boy by Israeli authorities. Wali Maswadeh was held earlier this week in the West Bank town of Hebron for throwing a stone. He was made to board a military jeep accompanied by a Palestinian adult. The Israeli army said what the boy did endangered passers-by, but no charges were filed against him. An Israeli human rights group called it illegal detention.
I would hope that everyone would be shocked, both to see the trauma that this 5-year-old boy went through. Also, for me, it's very shocking to see how calm everyone is about this incident. The fact that half a dozen soldiers can be so matter-of-fact that no one says that it is absurd to be detaining a 5-year-old boy. Children are entitled to special protections. I mean, they have all of the rights that we have. They also have special rights because they are, vulnerable, particularly vulnerable. So certainly an investigation should be opened into this case.
And back locally, a second-hand buyer of a room at Cheung Kong's Apex Horizon All-Suite Hotel is suing his seller for more than $1 million in compensation after the deal was cancelled. That's the first case of its kind involving the controversial project. The developer, meanwhile, has not commented on the case. Andrew Lau reports.
The controversial sale of rooms at this hotel in Kwai Chung by Cheung Kong Holdings was scrapped in May, and the developer had to refund its buyers. But the story doesn't end there. A second-hand buyer has filed a writ at the High Court, saying he purchased a suite for $3.3 million from a first-hand buyer who paid $3.1 million back in February. Because the deal was called off, the second-hand buyer is now suing his seller, claiming the deposit he paid and an additional sum amounting to 10% of the price of the unit. That's over $1 million. Civic Party legislator Dennis Kwok, who's a barrister, said the developer might become embroiled in a lawsuit as well.
Now, if I'm a first-hand buyer, naturally, I would look to Cheung Kong to compensate for my damages and my losses resulting from the breach of contract with the second-hand buyers. So there will be, of course, complications. And what I've urged the Securities and Futures Commission to do from the very beginning is to look into this matter and to settle the damages claims, whether they are coming from the first-hand buyers or the second-hand buyers, because the problem only had one source, which is that Cheung Kong has pushed for the sale of these apartments without the prior approval of the SFC.
Andrew Lau, TVB News.
Students will be fighting for a university spot when the Diploma of Secondary Education exam results are released on Monday. Because of the high demand for university places, there are now calls for the government to increase higher education opportunities for students. Rani Samtani has more.
Many students are worried about securing a place at a local university this fall. A total of 82,198 students took the Diploma of Secondary Education, or DSE, exams and are vying for a place in a university. But there aren't enough undergraduate places for everyone.
In Hong Kong nowadays, only 18% of the age population can enter into the first-degree, first-year program, subsidized places in Hong Kong, compared to a much higher percentage in Taiwan, in Korea, even in major cities like Shanghai or Beijing in China. We are much lagging behind.
Many students are uncertain about their chances of entering a tertiary institution because they are unsure about what results are needed for admission to specific degree programs. Students will be receiving their DSE exam results on Monday. However, even if they score enough to make the minimum requirements, they are not guaranteed a spot on an undergraduate degree program and will have to consider other options.
Of course, they can go to sub-degree programs, they have other choices. But I think if we are talking about quality education, so a lot of people are still aiming at university.
Ip says the government should do more to increase the number of university places, and that all youngsters should have the opportunity to get into a higher education institution. Besides vocational training and associate degree programs, students can try to win a self-financing university place or to attend a university abroad. Rani Samtani, TVB News.
So, Tony, how's that cricket coming along?
It's in its fourth day, and it looks like the hosts are edging closer to a first Test win, but we don't know just yet. We'll see. Another controversial day at Trent Bridge as England took control of the first Ashes Test against Australia. Jameson Wong has a wrap-up of all the action.
Key moment of day 3 as England's Stuart Broad clearly edged Ashton Agar to Michael Clarke. It slipped. Australia had already used up their 2 reviews, and Broad, who declined to walk, went on for 47 not out for 122 balls. Broad and Ian Bell partnered for 108 as the hosts reached 326 for 6 and a lead of 261 runs.
We play hard, we play fair. And like I said, each individual has the responsibility or makes his own judgment in the middle and says, I'll wait for the umpire's decision. Aleem Dar is a fantastic umpire and he's been rated one of the best umpires in world cricket over the last few years. Wait and respect his decision.
Obviously, people are going to be frustrated, but it's hard out there for players, for umpires. It's a long day. It's a tough day for both people out there, and things are going to happen, and we just have to deal with it. That's just a part of the game, and I think spectators have to understand that there is times when stuff like that happens.
The Broad controversy came a day after Jonathan Trott was given LBW despite hotspot technology being unavailable. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
In football, and what the special one wants, he usually gets. And that's why there's new talk of Manchester United's Wayne Rooney possibly ending up at Chelsea.
I always told that he's a player that I like very, very much, but I cannot say more than that. Being fast and direct, I like him very much, but he's a Man United player.
Well, unless I was speaking double Dutch, I think we said Wayne Rooney's not for sale. Don't think so. I think people are entitled to talk about good players, you know. I'm getting asked plenty of questions about Wayne, so I'm sure Josie will be getting asked about lots of players as well. But again, it's hard to sort of keep repeating myself, but I will do. You know, Wayne's a Manchester United player and will remain that.
Manchester United are in Bangkok on the first leg of their Asia tour. Rooney made the trip but has since returned to England after picking up a hamstring injury.
And finally for tonight, a truly inspiring story about that teenage Pakistani activist Malala Yousafzai. Yesterday, she celebrated her 16th birthday at the United Nations, where she made an impassioned speech calling for free compulsory schooling for every child in the world. NBC News has more.
A birthday on a world stage.
So here I stand, one girl among many.
At a special UN Assembly of Teens for Malala Yousafzai. But today was a day that almost didn't come.
Let me repeat the words the Taliban never wanted her to hear. Happy 16th birthday, Malala.
It was just 9 months ago the Taliban tried to kill her for promoting education for girls, shooting her in the head as she left school in Pakistan. Her story and survival ignited a global movement.
Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born. They thought that the bullet would silence us, but they failed. And out of that silence came thousands of voices.
In fact, millions have signed her petition to provide education for every child around the world.
She has experienced the discrimination. She has suffered because of her beliefs, and she has fought back.
Hard to remember, she's just a teenager.
She was more worried about her geography homework than her speech.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I was happy for that. This is good.
Still a schoolgirl, but a powerful voice for countless others.
One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world.
Amna Nawaz, NBC News, New York.
Well, that's some food for thought. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Hello everyone, it was mainly fine and very hot today. At 5 p.m., Typhoon Sulik was centered about 450 kilometers southeast of Nanchang, and it is forecast to move northwest at about 25 kilometers per hour across Fujian. Today's temperatures range from 28.4 to 33.5 degrees, and the current temperature is 30.3 degrees Celsius. So Freddie, how's the weather tomorrow? Mainly cloudy tonight, it will be hot tomorrow and we'll have sunny periods with a few showers. Temperatures will range from 27 to 32 degrees. Tomorrow's API is forecast at 30 to 90 and the pollution level will range from medium to high. The maximum UV index forecast for tomorrow will be about 9. Now, here's the latest global weather update. Cloudy in Shanghai, showers in Taipei. Showers in Macau and Chengdu. Cloudy in Beijing and Seoul. And rain in Seoul. Rain in Ho Chi Minh City and Manila. Showers in Kuala Lumpur, rain in Jakarta. Rain in Karachi and Mumbai. Sunny in Cairo, sunny intervals in Nairobi. Rain in Sydney and Melbourne. sunny in Toronto, cloudy in New York. Sunny intervals in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Sunny intervals in London, and Amsterdam, sunny in Paris. And that's the weather. Have a great evening.